So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Kaduki back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Monday, March 22nd. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Monday, March 22nd here today. Hopefully everybody had a good weekend. It was full of college basketball. Again, a lot of big games, a lot of really great upsets. So we're in college basketball mode now. We have now already, as crazy as it may seem, we are now already hitting the elite, or the Sweet 16. So today, we got the remaining of the second round games for the West and the East. And then starting up, I believe, on Saturday will be the Sweet 16 games. So we have a little bit of a haul in the action. And then we start up with the Sweet 16 games. And then get to the Elite 8 games. And then get to the Final Four. And then get to the championship. And then ultimately there will be a winner that will be crowned. So great games this weekend. My bracket got busted. I'm just going to make that clear. My bracket got busted. So I did not have Loyola Chicago beating Illinois. I did not have Albine Christian beating. I did not have Albine Christian beating Texas. I did not have Oral Roberts beating Texas or Ohio State and Florida. Although I did say after the Ohio State win, I did say because Florida I don't think is all that good. I did say if they could stop Trey Mann in Florida, if they could stop Trey Mann, they would win that game, and they did. So they won that game. I did not expect Loyola Chicago to beat Illinois. What are some other upsets? I did not expect UCLA to beat BYU. There is so much upsets that have gone on. North Texas beating Purdue. I did not expect that, although Villanova brought them back down to earth as they crushed them yesterday. I did not expect Oregon State to beat Oklahoma State. That's not the most surprising, but I wouldn't have expected it. So a lot of upsets. And I was reading something this morning, too, is there's actually, I think this is what they were saying is, like, statistically, and if you look at all the upsets, this is some of the most this is the most upsets we've had through two rounds of the March Madness so far. I mean, you got to look at it. Oral Roberts, Albine Christian, North Texas, Loyola Chicago. Like, there's so many upsets going on now. Like, it's crazy. And I'll tell you what, I mean, if I was at Oregon State, I mean, I'll tell you what, if I was a team like Gonzaga, you got to keep your head on straight. You just got to go full on into these games. You can't be worried about anything else. You just got to go put your head down and play your hardest. Don't take any of these teams lightly because we've seen Illinois go down. We saw Illinois go down. Baylor's still going, but Baylor, them too. They had a choppy performance their first game. We saw Arkansas almost lose to Colgate. There's been so much stuff. There's been so many close calls. So, but we are where we stand now. Loyola Chicago won. Rutgers yesterday, I was kind of pulling for Rutgers this tournament. They ended up losing. They blew the game late. I mean, had the game in their hands, and they just let it slip away. I mean, they had it in their hands. I mean, they were winning by, 10 with 5 minutes to go, and they just let it slip away. Turnovers late. Miss shots late just hurts. And, I mean, it really does. Missing baskets, missing shots, missing opportunities. It doesn't help, and Rutgers takes a loss yesterday, but obviously they had a good season nonetheless, got to the second round of the NCAA tournament, and was just about, one or two sloppy plays away from, making it to the Sweet 16, but, turnovers and missed shots hurt you in games, and at the end of the day, Houston got the win, and they move on to the Sweet 16. But let's get into the topics for today's podcast to kind of get over the weekend. There was a lot of action. The Nets lost on, Friday against the Magic. They won yesterday. The Rangers won Friday. The Rangers lost Friday, won Saturday, and then they played today against the Sabres. I feel very confident about today's game. The Sabres are the worst team in the NHL. They're on a 13-game losing streak. So I feel very confident about today's game with the Rangers. But at the same time, we got to go in and do our business, and that's what I mean. Like, we can't take this team lightly. Yes, they're a bad team, but the Rangers got to go in and do their business. So let's get into the topics. These are the topics for today's podcast. We're going to get into Kenny Golladay signs with the New York Giants. So, yes, the biggest free agent on the board has officially signed with an NFL team. He signs a 4-year deal worth up to $72 million contract with the New York Giants. So, me talking New York sports, I was going to talk about it either way, but with the New York sports team, I had to talk about it. So, the New York Giants, all their fans, they're getting a stud receiver. So they're getting a guy in Kenny Golladay that's going to be a true threat to other teams. Is going to be a key asset. And I have something to say about this move. And I think it's a very good move. Do I like the move? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say if I like the move or not, because I'm not a Giants fan. It's a good move. I'm going to admit it's a very good move. I mean, you're getting one of the better receivers in the league when he's healthy, so it's a very good move. But sometimes I like to see the Giants fail a little bit, given that they're the Jets, rivals, same stadium, same city, two big name teams, right? Kind of that kind of stuff. There's always a little bit of a battle there, but it is a good move. And I'll get into why it's a good move, and I'll get into why now this is officially Daniel Jones' make-or-break season. I'll tell you why coming up. And then we also got news that Salvador Perez, the catcher for the Kansas City Royals, signs with the re-signs with Kansas City Royals. They gave him a ginormous contract extension. Salvatore Perez, one of the better catchers in the MLB right now. I've talked about him many times on this podcast when talking about other catchers. I know through free agency I talked about him a little bit when names like JT Realmuto and Brian McCann and guys like that were brung up. I talked about Salvador Perez. When I'm talking about Gary Sanchez, I've talked about Salvador Perez a little bit. One of the best catchers in the league, if not the best catcher in the league. Him, Yadier Molina are all up there for one of the best catchers in the league. So, big move for the Royals. They're bringing back a veteran to a very young team with a very young core, with a team that's got a very good farm system. So the Royals bring back a veteran to bring back into this locker room is a good move for the Kansas City Royals. Very good move, and not just because they're getting his talent back, but I'll tell you why. It's because you're getting a veteran in the locker room for one of the youngest teams in baseball, which is very, very big for the Kansas City Royals. So we'll get into that. Then we'll finish it up with the New York Sports Update. Recap the weekend of March Madness. Really, March Madness. I mean, Madness is the perfect name. Literally, it's been madness with all these upsets and all these teams winning. We got two teams that no one expected. We got UCLA versus Albany Christian in the second round. Like, who would have expected that? Who in the world? No one did, as a matter of fact, because all the brackets are busted. Who in the world had Albany Christian, if I'm even pronouncing that correctly, and I don't mean that in a mean way, I sincerely not great with that name. Who in the world thought Albany Christian and UCLA would have been in the second round battling against a 14 seed and 11 seed, battling it out? Who would have thought that? I'm sure we all was thinking Texas, BYU, or at least Texas and someone else. Maybe some people had UCLA winning against BYU, but Texas, a lot of people had Texas winning it all. And I could very well see that. I had Texas making a deep run. So, literally March Madness, they call it March Madness for a reason, because there's a lot of madness this weekend, and it's good. It's good. I like upsets, even though they bust your bracket. It's fun to see a small team like Oral Roberts. Like, when do we ever talk about Oral Roberts? And they are now in the Sweet 16, taking the country by storm. I mean, they're the talk of sports right now. Oral Roberts, right? It's crazy. So they call it March Madness for the weekend, for a reason. Over the weekend, I skipped a little bit there. Over the weekend, it was true madness, but it's all fun. It's great to watch it. March Madness, I think, the greatest sporting event out of all of them. Tops all the pro ones. I think it is. I mean, it's so much fun. All the games, all the teams, all the upsets. Just all the Cinderella stories, all the talent, a lot of fun. So a good weekend for the March Madness. Rangers played today. Nets have a day off. And the Yankees also played today. Come Thursday, we are officially a week away from the opening day for the MLB. So that should be good. That should be not just good. That's super exciting. For if you're an MLB fan like me, which I'm sure many of you who watch this podcast are, because I talk a lot about MLB. So, good sports, good New York sports right now. New York sports is going pretty good. A lot of free agency stuff going on with the Jets and the Giants. Rangers and Nets are in full swing. Rangers trying to make a push towards the playoffs. Nets trying to secure, their seeding and trying to, go into the playoffs hot. So all that's pretty good. But with all that being said, this is the BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast, and let's get right into it. So, ex-Lions wide receiver Kenny Golladay, Giants reportedly agreed to 4-year, $72 million contract as the biggest free agent is now, I shouldn't say the biggest free agent, I'm sorry about that. The biggest free agent receiver is now off the board. Juju Smith-Schuster re-signed with the Steelers. Corey Davis signed with the Jets. Will Fuller signed with the Dolphins. Kenny Golladay now signs with the New York Giants. So I guess you can kind of say the 5-6 biggest receivers are now off the board. Kenny Golladay a couple days ago was going into Saturday was the biggest free agent remaining. Obviously, Dak was technically the biggest free agent coming into the season, coming into free agency, but we all knew he was either going to get franchise tag or long-term deal. So a lot has gone on in free agency. We are now officially a week into free agency. So today is Monday. This time last week, we were talking about free agency. We're officially a week into free agency. We are officially got a lot of moves. Kenny Golladay is now off the board. And free agency has been a lot of fun. And I'll get into Kenny Golladay here in a second. But free agency has been a lot of fun. I mean, it really has been a lot of action. Obviously, it's really slowing down. There's not many guys left remaining. Richard Sherman's still out there. So some guys are still out there. But for the most part, free agency is winding down. And as we head closer to the season and the draft, you'll probably start to see trades and things like that heat up. And then eventually you get into the NFL draft and so on and so forth. Training camps, OTAs and training camps and then the season and all that stuff. But that's all down the road. So the NFL season right now is, going in a pretty smooth pattern here with all the free agency stuff. So it was good. But let's get into this Kenny Golladay deal. So the Giants make a huge splash in free agency here, giving Kenny Golladay this 4-year deal, which is $72 million contract. No surprise there. There was some reports that came out Friday, I heard, that there was some reports that came out on Friday that were saying that Kenny Golladay is wanting about $17 to $20 million a year. Then there were some reports that were coming out that some teams didn't want to offer that. So all the wrong rumors, these people, these insiders sometimes trying to create a little bit of drama as they come down to ultimately his final decision. But yeah, Kenny Golladay signs with the Giants here. And the Giants get a playmaker. I mean, the Giants are getting a playmaker. And I've said this all along with Kenny Golladay. If he can stay healthy, because he's had some health issues in his career, meaning he's had some injuries in his career. If he could stay healthy, he is one of the better receivers in the league. He is actually one of the better one-on-one receivers in the league. You could just almost think of any category you want. Quick receiver, good catching receiver, one-on-one receiver, smart receiver. He's up there in a lot of those categories. I'm not saying he's the best receiver in the league, but when he's on top of his game, when he's playing at the high level, when he's healthy, you could put him up there as one of the better receivers in the league. And what Giants fans should be most excited about this signing, not just the fact that you're getting Kenny Golladay and you're getting a player who is not just that you're getting Kenny Golladay and you're getting a receiver that can be a dominant one-on-one threat, all that stuff. Not that you're just getting that. You're getting a guy who is still young and still has a lot to learn and still can grow. And what's good with that is the Giants have a young offense. So you're bringing a guy in, Kenny Golladay, who is still relatively young to this team. So, he's only 27 years old. And obviously there's some younger players on the offense, but he's 27 years old. And another thing that's really good about this deal is when the 4 years are up, he's 31. Boom, he's starting to get a little bit older. So you're getting him in his prime years right now. And when this deal's over, I don't want to just assume, but I would assume when he's 31 years old and he's getting older, he's not going to be Kenny Golladay when the deal first begun. So I think that's why the Giants didn't stretch and make it a 5-6 year deal. They only made it a 4-year deal. And like I said, you're getting his playmaking ability. You're getting a guy who can win out one-on-one. You're getting a guy who can be, he can compete, and he could dominate some of the best cornerbacks in the league. You're getting a guy who is also young, fresh into the league. He's still young. He's 27 years old. That's still relatively young. If you're getting a guy that was 30, I would question this move. But you're getting a guy who's 27. You're going to have him for his prime years, and you're giving him money, and you're going to give him a lot of money because he's going to be worth it. He's going to be a guy that's going to go out there every Sunday, help out the team, make plays, and I would say we got to see how Saquon Barkley does, but I would say on paper right now, he is the New York Giants' best offensive player. Now, don't take my words and spin those. I'm saying right now, based off on last season, he's been the best player. He's the best player. Because Barkley played, 2-3 games last year? So, based off of last season and kind of just an overview, you probably is your best player. Because I want to see how Saquon Barkley returns from the torn ACL. Right, Saquon Barkley. I really like Saquon Barkley. Some people think I don't. I really like Saquon Barkley. He's probably my favorite Giant. I really like him. He's a great player. He's a good guy. He does a lot of good stuff off the field. He's just an overall good person. He works hard, practices. I like guys. He's earned his spot on this roster. He's earned his spot in the NFL. I like him a lot. But he's coming off of a torn ACL. You can't sit here and tell me he's going to be the same exact Saquon Barkley we saw. He very well could be. It's easier to return from a torn ACL than a torn Achilles, like Marlon Mack right now. But it's a torn ACL nonetheless. So you still got to see how he returns. And if let's just say Barkley returns and he's on fire, well, boom, you got two players you got Saquon Barkley, who in his beginning of his career before he tore his ACL, he was one of the best, if not the best, running back in the NFL. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, that comparison, you could debate it on days on and on and on. I could honestly debate for both sides. I could see both sides of it. I could see why Christian McCaffrey is and Saquon is. So you could see that. Then you got, obviously now Kenny Golladay. But the big thing here with the New York Giants is, and I want to make this clear, if the Giants can stay healthy, their offense is looking pretty good. I don't want to say their offense looks dominant, because that's just not fair to say. You can't just say, we got Kenny Golladay, our offense looks dominant. But they do. Their offense on paper right now, because we got to see how it works out first. Right? We got to see it. We can't just assume, the Giants got Barkley and Kenny Golladay, they're going to be a top 5 offense in the NFL. No, you can't say that. And I even say that with the Jets. Right? We can't just assume just because the Jets added on offense doesn't mean we're going to be the most improved offense in the league. We got to see these players mesh together. So this is the same situation in Kenny Golladay. So a good move for the New York Giants. And like I said, you're not just getting a guy who can be a playmaker, one-on-one, quick, smart, but you're getting a guy who's in his prime years and he's still young. Only 27 years old, and you're bringing him into a younger offense. You could go either way. You could say, they should have added a veteran. No. I don't think too many Giants fans are complaining today, though. So you're adding a guy, a playmaker, and like I said, if he can stay healthy, he's one of the best in the league. And if he can't, well, then that's a problem. And that could be one of the risks here. Can he stay healthy? Last season, he didn't stay healthy. He only played a couple games. But can he stay healthy? He's one of the better receivers in the league. He was the best on the Lions. He was up there in the league. And even last season, he was still probably considered the best on the Lions, even though he only played a couple games, because he made a lot of impact in those couple of games. And what I want to go back to my Daniel Jones point here. This is now Daniel Jones's make or break year. Because we always have that excuse, and I've been saying, let's just say the Jets, right? Let's say the Jets decide to hang on to Sam Darnold, and they don't draft a quarterback number 2. This is Sam Darnold's make or break year, because we've now built around him. We've gotten Corey Davis, we've gotten Keelan Cole, we've already got Denzel Mims, and we've already got Jamison Crowder. So boom, those are 4 solid receivers. One very good receiver, when he's at the top of his game, is definitely one of the more dangerous, one of the more quicker, dangerous receivers out there. We got a veteran receiver who still plays at a high level, and Jamison Crowder. We got a young receiver who's quick, speedy, averaged over 12 yards per catch in in Keelan Cole. We got a deep ball threat in Denzel Mims. And then we obviously, and I named all of them by now. So we don't have that excuse with Sam Darnold. Same thing here with Daniel Jones. This is Daniel Jones' make or break year now. This year will decide whether he's a New York Giant or not next season. And I want to make this clear when I say this, then I'll read this article, and then we'll look into some of the numbers with Kenny Golladay. I want to make this clear when I say this. When I say the Giants should start over at quarterback, I mean they should start over at quarterback, not start over overall. I don't want not saying if Daniel Jones has a bad year, that doesn't mean the Giants strip everything down and start completely over. No. I just mean if Daniel Jones does not do well this year, you gotta find a new quarterback. And I think many Giants fans can agree with me, and I think a lot of Giants fans now too can still agree that you don't trust him. And I could see that. And I'm kind of with that with Darnold. I'm kind of an odd situation with Darnold. Because, yeah, he didn't have a true number one to throw to. But, I mean, not even just some of that, just some of the throws he made, too, were so questionable. That's the same thing with Daniel Jones. Some of his decision-making is so questionable, the receivers can't do anything about his decision-making sometimes. So this is Daniel Jones' make-or-break year. You no longer have that excuse of, oh, look what he's working with. He's working with a Golden Tate. He's working with Darius Slayton, who can't stay on the field. He's working with Sterling Shepard, who has moments. He's working with all these guys. He's working with what? A second-string running back. You don't have that excuse anymore. Because now you got a true number one in Kenny Golladay, and your running back Saquon Barkley is coming back. So you no longer have that excuse. If Daniel Jones has a good year, then boom, you keep him. If he has a bad year, there's no doubt about it. There's no question whatsoever. You get rid of him. If they have a 5-11 year and Daniel Jones throws 10 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, you got to get rid of him, and there's no question about it. And if Kenny Golladay plays all 16 and plays all the games, well, there's no question. If Kenny Golladay can't stay healthy and he plays 3 or 4 games, maybe you can have a little bit of a debate about it because he didn't have his number one. But if Kenny Golladay stays healthy, Daniel Jones needs now to take advantage of this. And if he wants to stay on the New York Giants, he's got to have a good year this year. And I look at it as that way. The New York Giants are kind of saying to Daniel Jones, like, hey, we got your number one receiver, and one of the better running backs in the league is now coming back. So let's see what we got. We're laying it all out there. The Giants spent their money. They went all out for Kenny Golladay. They got him. Boom. Now it's your time, Daniel Jones. Now the Giants kind of sit back and see how Daniel Jones does. This is almost like I look at it as an audition for Daniel Jones. His first 2 years didn't have the talent around him. Okay. The Giants went out. They got talent. They got Kenny Golladay. Now it's Daniel Jones' opportunity to truly show with a true number one receiver and his star running back behind him in the backfield. Now it's officially time to see if Daniel Jones is this quarterback. And if he isn't, get rid of him and start over at that position. Ex-Lions wide receiver Kenny Golladay, Giants reportedly agreed to a 4-year deal, $72 million contract. Veteran wide receiver Kenny Golladay has reportedly agreed to a contract with the New York Giants. Like I said, he is a veteran. He's a veteran, but he's 27, so he's still relatively young. It's not like you're getting a guy who's 33 years old and you're trying to sign him to a 4-year deal. He's still relatively young. According to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, Golladay agreed to a 4-year, $72 million contract that includes $40 million guaranteed. The Giants lock in a number one receiver in Kenny Golladay, paying him $18 million a year to do it. The Bears came on strong with a significant push, essentially a recruiting effort. But Golladay wanted the Giants, and the two sides worked the last 24 hours to close the deal. That was from Ian Rappaport. The 27-year-old has been excellent when healthy, posting career numbers, 65 catches for 1,190 yards and 11 touchdowns in 2019. It was his second straight season exceeding 1,000 receiving yards. He was limited to just 5 games in 2020, though, notching 20 receptions for 330 yards and 2 scores. Still, Golladay came into the offseason as one of the better free agent receivers available, alongside names such as Juju Smith-Schuster, Will Fuller, and Corey Davis. Obviously, Smith-Schuster re-signed with the Steelers. Will Fuller went to the Dolphins, and Corey Davis went to the New York Jets. There was always the possibility that the Lions could have slapped Golladay with the franchise tag, but once they didn't, it seemed likely he'd sign elsewhere. The Northern Illinois product is not among the elite receivers in the NFL, but he's a true number one option in his prime years. New York had frequently been linked to Golladay dating back to the trade deadline last season. If Golladay stays healthy in 2021, he could be one of the truly impactful signings of this offseason. In New York, he'll fill the number one receiver void left behind by Odell Beckham Jr. when he was traded to the Cleveland Browns. Suddenly, Daniel Jones has a dangerous collection of weapons and led running back Saquon Barkley, wideouts Golladay, Darius Slay, and Sterling Shepard, and tight end Evan Ingram. Now, I want to make something clear. Like I said before, he's not a dominant receiver like many of these guys in the NFL. Like I said, when he's healthy, he's one of the better ones in the league. But he's not like a Stephon Diggs. He's not a DeAndre Hopkins. But when he's healthy, I wouldn't say he's a top 3 or 5 receiver in the NFL. I would say he's more top 10. So you got your prime tier 1 guys. He would be more tier 2, but he's a true number 1. And I want to also make this clear too. Daniel Jones, the Giants' offense is solid right now. It looks solid on paper. Calling it dangerous right this second, I think is you can't do that. Because outside of Golladay and Barkley, this offense together hasn't worked out well. So all of a sudden you add 2 names and all of a sudden it's dangerous. I don't think the offense is dangerous to say. If you get another receiver, sure they're maybe you could consider dangerous. But I wouldn't so much say they're dangerous right now. And another thing too is Evan Ingram. He can't catch. He's terrible at tight end. Ask any Giants fan you know. He's awful. So the Giants actually are looking to trade him. So he might be a piece that's gone. So you gotta take it in, right? Yes, they got Kenny Golladay and Barkley in them, but I wouldn't consider their offense automatically dangerous. Because you also got to realize, Daniel Jones is the quarterback. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to joke about this. But I truly mean it. Daniel Jones is the quarterback. We got to see what this guy's capable of. Maybe it is just a matter of needing a number 1 receiver. But if it's not, then getting Kenny Golladay means absolutely nothing right now. Because that it doesn't mean anything. Because if Daniel Jones just isn't good enough, then that doesn't matter. But if Daniel Jones truly needs a number 1, well, then you got your number 1 in Kenny Golladay. And like I said, it says it right here. The 27-year-old has been excellent when healthy. That's been one of the issues with him, is staying healthy. But when he does, and he's at the top of the game, he's dangerous. I would say that's dangerous. So, the Giants are getting a very solid receiver. They're getting a 27 years old. But I mean, I guess you can almost say they say he's a veteran. I mean, this is only his 5th year in the NFL. So, and I mean, you look at it. He's played 4 years in the league. He's had 1 season where he's played 16 games. He played all 16. That was in 2019, in which he had a career year. So he had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and you look at it: 15 games, 16 games. 2018, 2019, he had 2 1,000-yard seasons. Okay, when he was healthy, he was dominant. The year before that, 11 games his rookie season, didn't even come close to 1,000 yards. Last year, didn't even come close to 1,000 yards. All right, this is a guy who averages over 16 yards per catch in his career. Like I said, 20 receptions, 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 16.9 was his average last season. He almost averaged 17 yards per catch last season. In 2019, he averaged 18.3 yards per catch while notching 11 touchdowns, which was a career high. He's had 21 career touchdowns. And like I said, he could stretch the field too. His longest catch of his career was 75 yards. So he could stretch the field too. And this is a guy who he can get targeted a lot. In back-to-back years, he got targeted over 100 times. So he's gotten targeted 335 times in his career, 183 receptions. So he's up there. He's played 47 games in about 4 years, which is about like 10 games a season, which isn't great. But they gotta make sure he stays healthy, and whatever the Giants gotta do. Like he said, he's a 6'4", 214 pounds. He's a tall guy. He's strong. He can haul in a deep ball. So you just gotta hope that he stays healthy for the New York Giants, because if he doesn't, this deal could go south here. But I think if the Giants work with him, they maybe create a new plan for him or whatever, because whatever was working in Detroit, whatever happened in Detroit, he just wasn't able to stay on the field. And like I said, that's one thing. You can't blame a guy for getting injured. Sometimes they just get injured. You can't blame them. You can't sit here and say, "Oh, I hate this guy because he got injured." No, you can't do that. He got injured. What happened? You can't control it. If you get tackled on a play and you get injured, you can't control that. Sure, maybe you could have tried to strip the tackle, but it's a lot easier said than done. So, if you're a Giants fan, I'm sure 99% of Giants fans like this deal. I'm sure there might be that small 1% of, we got an injury-prone receiver. But you got to realize, look at the numbers. When he's healthy, he's very solid. And you just got to think positive and hope that he is healthy. Because if he is, the Giants are getting a true weapon in Kenny Golladay. So, and like I said, 2 1,000-yard seasons in his 4 seasons. And those 2 seasons, he played 15 games and 16 games. So, you give him playing, he gets out there, he's healthy. Like I said, he is very good. So, New York Giants are getting a solid, very good receiver in Kenny Golladay. Coming up next, we're going to get into Salvador Perez and the Royals. As the Royals signed Salvador Perez to a big-time contract extension. I'll tell you why this is very good, not just because you're getting a very solid catcher back, but you're bringing in a guy who's more of a veteran on the team now, to a very young roster, and to a team that has a very young farm system and has a bright future ahead of them. I'll tell you why this is a good move coming up next. Alrighty, so let's get into this. So Salvador Perez, Royals agreed to a new 4-year contract worth reported $82 million. So the Royals and Salvador Perez have come to an agreement. Salvador Perez will be remaining in Kansas City for 4 more years, playing for the team he has pretty much his entire career. And they're bringing back a veteran, literally a veteran. He's 30 years old, a guy who has played in the league a long time, a guy who has been around a lot, a guy who has just been a solid player. And just the Royals are bringing him back. So the Royals are bringing back a guy in Salvador Perez who, and I said this as we get into this here. I kind of said this a couple times when I was talking about JT Realmuto, Brian or James McCann, when I was talking about Sanchez and Higashioka, I've brung up Salvador Perez's name a lot because his name should come up a lot. Salvador Perez is one of the more dominant catchers in the NFL. As a matter of fact, probably like 3 years ago, when he was in his true prime before his Tommy John surgery, he was by far the best catcher in the MLB. And you could make the argument that, Yadier Molina is, or Buster Posey is, or JT Realmuto is. JT Realmuto now might have taken the throne of best catcher in the MLB, but definitely Salvador Perez by far is definitely up there for one of the best catchers in the league. And he's found a home in Kansas City with the Kansas City Royals. There's no doubt about it. He's been with this team his entire career. He started off as a guy that was just trying to, make a roster spot and all that. Big time guy, came into the league, made his mark early on with the Kansas City Royals. And the Royals liked him from day one. He's looked good since day one, and he was a big part of a lot of those deep playoff runs the Royals had in those 2014 to about 2016 range, eventually beating the New York Mets in the World Series back in 2015. So the Royals made a lot of deep runs in the postseason. They lost in the NLCS against the San Francisco Giants, I believe, in like 2012, back when the Giants were one of the more, looked like they were building a dynasty. They had, 3 championships in like 5 years. They were looking good, and it was tough that the Royals were really good at a time the Giants were good as well. But he's been through it all with the Kansas City Royals. He's been through the highs, and the lowest, the lows, and goes into my next point with the Kansas City Royals. The Royals are going through a rebuild right now. There's no doubt about it. They fired their manager, Ned Yost. They brought in a new manager. They believe this is a guy that's going to develop the young guys well, develop this team, and ultimately build a winning culture in Kansas City that they had about 5-6 years ago. They want that winning culture back. Really, since that 2015 World Series win, the Royals have not been the same. They've lost a lot of guys. Moustakas, who is now with the Reds. Obviously, they lost Alex Gordon to retirement. They lost a lot of guys. That was a veteran team that they lost. They lost Lorenzo Cain, Alcides Escobar. They lost a lot of guys. They lost a lot of key assets from that team. Salvador Perez is one of the remaining guys. And I look at this deal as almost like a Yankees bringing back Brett Gardner. And Salvador Perez is definitely much more in his prime than Brett Gardner is. And Salvador Perez is going to get a big payday here. But Salvador Perez knows how it is to win. He knows what you got to do. He's been through a winning team. He's won it all, right? He knows what you got to do in order to win. And a lot of times, teams love to bring guys back that know how to win. They like to bring guys back into a young locker room that a lot of guys want to win. Guys that are hungry for success. Guys that haven't personally ever really won any big-time title. To bring in a guy who's gone through it, to bring in a guy that knows what you got to do in order to win it is huge for a team like the Kansas City Royals. The Royals have one of the best farm systems in baseball, and a lot of those guys like Bobby Witt Jr., guys like that, are going to come up, and they might play this season. They very well could make the opening day roster. And those are guys that are fresh from your farm system. Those are guys that are brand new into the league. And a lot of times when guys join the league, that's one of the first things they want to do. They want to win right away. They want to win. They want to win. They want to win. And bringing a guy in a locker room that's rebuilding, bringing a guy in that knows what it takes to win is huge for a locker room, and huge not only for a locker room, but in this case, a young locker room for the Kansas City Royals. Guys like Bobby Witt Jr., he's definitely gonna make an impact on this team. I definitely think with the way I've seen Bobby Witt Jr. play a couple times this spring, he's so much fun to watch. With the way he's playing, he very well could make the opening day roster. No one expected that to happen this year. He's very good, but they all expected him to have a little bit more time to grow in the minor leagues. But he's been dominant. Whatever he did this offseason, all the training he did is really paying off. And that's a guy that's going to want to learn. That's a guy that's going to want to learn, and a guy who's definitely going to want to learn from a guy who has won something and has been on a winning team like Salvador Perez was back in 2015 with the Kansas City Royals. And that's another thing, too, which reminds me a little bit of the Gardner deal here is they're bringing a guy in Salvador Perez back. He's really one of the only remaining guys from that team back in 2015. And Gardner's the only remaining guy from the New York Yankees back in 2009 World Series. So you're bringing a guy in to a young roster, to a young team. I mean, even all the coaching staff is all gone from that team. Obviously, they fired Ned Yost, brought in a new guy. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be a tough year for the Royals. I don't foresee the Royals doing much. But if I was a Royals fan today, I would feel pretty confident with the way the future is forming. Is this year, are you automatically going to win the World Series? No. Are you going to make the playoffs? I would say no. Are you going to be bottom of your division? Probably, because they're rebuilding. A lot of this year is going to be a lot of trying to see the young guys, calling up a lot of minor leaguers, working with the farm system, and things like that. And ultimately trying to win games. When you say you're going through a rebuild, teams never try to purposely lose or anything. They're always trying to win games. Just rebuilding means, building for the future a little bit. So I would tell you this, especially after this deal, because you are getting a guy in Salvador Perez. He's 30 years old. He's a little bit older, but he's still very solid. And what's super promising to me is when he had Tommy John back in 2019 and missed that season, and you could really tell they missed him. They missed that bat in the lineup. He's one of the better hitting catchers in the MLB. Stats are proven. When you are a catcher, You're not as powerful of a hitter, or is not as good of a hitter as like a first baseman or a third baseman or an infielder of some sort. You're just not as good. But when you're a catcher, you're just not as good. A lot of times catchers focus a lot more on their defense because it's one of the hardest positions to play defense at in the entire MLB. They work on blocking balls, strikes, framing, all that stuff. They work on all that stuff. Sometimes catchers aren't the best hitters. It's actually proven. You look at guys' batting average, their power. A lot of times, guys who are catchers aren't going to have as much power as a guy who's like a third baseman or an infielder or outfielder or something like that. But Salvador Perez, he's a solid hitter. He's a very big power hitter. He can crank a home run or two whenever you need him to, and he can still get singles and doubles. It's really nice to see. He's got a very good swing, very powerful in the lower half, and plays the game smart. He's been in the league for not 30 years, but he's 30 years old. He's been in the league. He's seen a lot. And he's taken a lot of what he's seen, he's implemented to his game, which I think is going to be huge for some of the young guys. Because I think he's going to really want to teach those young guys what he learned, teach it to them, and kind of be one of those, now he's the veteran. When he came on, he was the young guy trying to scoop information. Now he's in that position now of being the veteran, giving the young guys the information. So I'll tell you what, if I'm a Royals fan today, not only are you getting a guy that has been your catcher for a long time now, but you're getting a guy who's a veteran, and you're going to get a guy that's going to be a big-time help trying to develop some of those young players that are coming up from one of the best farm systems in baseball. Salvador Perez, Royals agreed to a new four-year contract worth reported $82 million. The Kansas City Royals announced Sunday they have agreed to a 4-year extension with catcher Salvador Perez. Alex Lewis of The Athletic provided a breakdown of the new deal, which has an average of more than $20 million per year. The terms of Salvador Perez 4-year extension per source, 20.5 and AAV deal starts in 2022, which is annual average value. 2022 earned $18 million, 2023 $20 million, 2024 $20 million, 2025 $22 million, and 2026 $13.5 million club option for $2 million buyout. Perez was heading into the final year of his current contract, initially signed in 2016, and was set to make $14.2 million in 2021. The 30-year-old bounced back in a big way in 2020 after missing all of 2019 with Tommy John surgery, like I mentioned earlier. The slugger finished the season with a 333 batting average and a 986 OPS during the shortened season, both the best of his career. And he's at 3 years old, and he's putting up numbers the best. So he's 30, but he's playing like he's young, which is great. He also added 11 home runs on his way to the Silver Slugger award. Even earning MVP votes despite the Royals falling short of the playoffs. Perez has been one of the best two-way catchers throughout his career, earning 6 straight All-Star selections from 2013 to 2018, adding 5 Gold Glove awards and 2 more Silver Sluggers during this time frame. He was also named World Series MVP after helping the Royals win it all in 2015, like I mentioned earlier as well. The veteran has spent his entire career in Kansas City until now and will seemingly remain in the city for the foreseeable future. I would imagine 4 years, he would be about 34 years old then. I would go ahead and put my money on it that after this deal is up, not saying he's going to retire, but he might find a new home or decide to do something else. Because when he's 34 years old, so on and so forth. Obviously that's down the road here, but you would assume this might be one of his last big contracts he will sign as he gets older on his career. But like I said also, this is a guy who's still putting up big numbers when he's 30 years old. A lot of times you see a decrease. Those are both career high, 333 batting average and 986 OPS. Those were both career highs. Those are major stat categories. Slugging percentage and batting average are big stat categories. And add on 11 home runs in that in a 60-game season. I forget what it was. But if you hit like 15 home runs in a 60-game season, it would translate to like 30 in a regular year. So if you hit about 11 or something, it would be like 20 for something in the regular year. Because you have 102 more games to play, which is more opportunities to hit home runs. It's like the equivalent or something. It's like you got to multiply or whatever. But very good move for the Royals. They're getting a guy who is still playing at a very high level. They're getting a veteran. And like I said, maybe Realmuto might have, but Realmuto's injured right now. I would say right now, Perez definitely is one of the best, if not the best, two-way catchers in the league. Very good at defense and very good at offense. And like I said, that's rare to see. A lot of times catchers focus a lot on their defense, and their offense is not as good. But this is a guy who has found a way to work on both and work on both very well. Very good move for the Royals. Let's look at some of the numbers here, and we'll head into the New York Sports Update. Like I said, that's another thing, too. You're doing good when you're on a team that's struggling and rebuilding and you're receiving MVP votes. Because it's the truth. A lot of times when you're on a smaller name team, or in this case, not a great team, not many people realize you. Like, if you're like Salvador Perez, he's playing in the Royals right now, or playing with the Royals right now. If there's a guy doing well for the Royals and there's a guy doing well for the Yankees, for example, you're probably going to hear a lot more out of a bigger market team, the team that's succeeding better. I'm not just using the Yankees as an example. I could use the Dodgers for an example. Let's just say there's a guy on the Royals playing well, and there's a guy in the Dodgers playing well. You're going to hear more about the Dodgers because they're contenders, they're playing well. So it's big that he still made, that people were still talking about him and received MVP votes, even when he was playing for a team that missed the playoffs. When over half the MLB made the playoffs. But that's not his fault. I mean, they're going through a rebuild. So, Salvador Perez, obviously, good move there. He's 30 years old. He's going to turn 31 on May 10th, so which would put him at 31, which would put him at a little bit of the middle of the season there. And like I said, he's been with the Royals for his entire career, 2011 to now. So obviously has had a very good year, has had many good years with them. But last season, he batted .333, 11 home runs, 32 RBIs, and like I mentioned earlier, 986 OPS. It's a guy who's had 992 career hits, so he's only 8 away from 1,000 hits, which is a nice mark. It's a guy who's every year of his career, he's had double-digit doubles except his first year. It's a guy who's had double-digit home runs every single year of his career, except his first season. He didn't play much in his first season. But this is a guy, another two as well. He averages about 109 at-bats a season, which is solid. You stay healthy that way. He averages about 109 at-bats a season, which is good. Not at-bats, I'm sorry, 410 at-bats a season. Sorry about that. He's played 979 games total. His average is 109 games a season, but that's a little messed up because of last year. He only played 37, and in a 162, he would play a lot more. So he played 120. He probably averages about like 130 if you take away last season. So he doesn't miss many games. He plays over half the year by a lot. He averages about 410 at bats a season, which is good. This is a guy who's had 3,687 at bats in his career. That's a lot of ABs. So that's a lot of teaching for the guys. It's a lot of seeing a lot of different pitches, a lot of different pitchers. He's a guy who's experienced. He's been in the league for a long time. He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. He's had 403 runs scored. He averaged about 45 a season. He averaged about 110 hits a season, which is solid. And his batting average as well, he's about a season average is about a 269 hitter. His career is 269. So, which is really good. 269 for your career for a catcher is really good. For some just regular players, that's really good as well. This is a guy, like I said, he could definitely stretch and play power, be a solid power hitter. He's 17 home runs a year, which is solid. And doubles, too. He gets a lot of doubles, a lot of hits. This is a guy who all around is a very good player. And his defense, too, you can even make the arguments even better. But really solid as well. And like I said, he's played 31 games in the postseason. So he's got postseason experience as well. And we'll see how it unfolds. But it's looking right now like the Kansas City Royals are bringing back a veteran, bringing back one of the best catchers in the league, and Salvador Perez. Good move for the Kansas City Royals, and we'll see how it all plays out. So a lot of sports news, like big news too, like not just topics or something, but big news, like breaking news, like it's a lot. So good to see. Good to see. Obviously all the good news and stuff. Tomorrow I think tomorrow I have some topics in mind. There's some Francisco Lindor rumors going around, so I think I might talk about that. And I wanted to talk about Adam Fox on the Rangers because he's been really dominant this year. So I kind of want to talk about him and just how he's been so good. And if he's going to win the Norris Trophy, which is the Defenseman of the Year in the NHL, which I think is a very good shot that he does. So, anyway, so let's get into the games here with the college basketball games. So over the weekend, obviously, a lot of great games over the weekend. A lot of really good games over the weekend. So to kind of recap it all, a lot happened, to kind of say the very least. On Friday, you obviously had Syracuse beating San Diego State. You had North Texas beating Purdue. You had Wisconsin beating North Carolina. You had Oklahoma State beating Liberty. Or actually, Loyola Chicago. Let's get into some of the upsets here. You had Oral Roberts beating Ohio State. You had Florida beating Virginia Tech. You had Oregon State beating Tennessee. So there's a lot of stuff there. And then on Saturday there was even more. UCLA beating BYU. Albany Christian beating Texas. Maryland beating UConn. Ohio beating Virginia. You had no other upsets there, actually. Not much other upsets there. They got all the other teams got the job done. Then yesterday you had you had Oral Roberts beating Florida, Houston beating Rutgers, tough way to do that. Syracuse won. Loyola Chicago upset Illinois. Arkansas hold it off Texas Tech, and then Oregon State beat Oklahoma State. So, I mean, just so many upsets, so many great games. But as for today's games, the first game is Iowa and Oregon. So I have Iowa in my bracket to win this game, but the way things are going in college basketball, I wouldn't even be surprised to see Oregon get the win here. I mean, Oregon's a good team, but with the way things have unfolded, especially with the Big Ten, Illinois is done. Illinois is done. Who else is done in the Big Ten? Purdue's done. With all the teams in the Big Ten that have done well this entire season, there's some teams that are getting knocked out. So I wouldn't even be surprised to see Oregon win this game, just because of the fact that there's been so many upsets. So we'll see how it plays out. But today we also got going Gonzaga, Oklahoma. I'll give Gonzaga the win. UCLA, Albany Christian. I'll give UCLA the win here. UCLA is going to go to the Sweet 16. That's crazy. You don't even think that's going to happen. Creighton, Ohio. I'll give Creighton the win. I think Creighton was very well going to go deep. Michigan, LSU. I'll give Michigan the win. Colorado, Florida State. Let's give Florida State the win. Alabama, Maryland. Give Alabama the win. Kansas, USC. A lot of people are hopping on the USC train. I'm going to go Kansas. That spread has changed so much. Earlier today, it was USC were favorites. Now Kansas is the favorite. And that's the late game, so that spread might change a couple times. That's going to be a really good game, no matter who wins. No matter who wins, it's going to be a close game. I could almost guarantee that. So enjoy today, because after today, we're going to have a couple days off of basketball, and then we'll then the Sweet 16 starts on Saturday. So enjoy all the games today, because with all the games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, and then today, we're going to have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's going to be no basketball, but then Saturday, we'll have basketball back on with the Sweet 16 matchups. So as for the NBA, like I said, the Nets lost against the Magic on Friday, but then they won yesterday. So 1-1 for, I guess, the weekend. So good there, but obviously, good win yesterday there. So today we got the Kings, Cavaliers. I'll give Kings the win. Timberwolves, Thunder, give Timberwolves the win. Spurs, Hornets, give Spurs the win. Grizzlies, Celtics, give Grizzlies the win. Jazz, Bulls, give Jazz the win. Bucks, Pacers, give Bucks the win. Raptors, Rockets, give Raptors the win. And Clippers, Hawks, give Clippers the win. And as for the NHL, obviously the Rangers lost on Friday, but then won on Saturday. So they had a back-to-back there. So it was a good win. But these are the games for today for the NHL. We got Flames, Senators. I'll give Flames the win. Hurricanes, Blue Jackets. I'll give Hurricanes the win. Flyers, Islanders. I'll give Islanders the win. Oilers, Canadians. Give Canadians the win. Wild, Ducks. I'll give Wild the win. Avalanche, Coyotes. Give Avalanche the win. Blues, Golden Knights. Give Golden Knights the win. Jets, Canucks. Give Jets the win. And Kings, Sharks. Give Sharks the win. The Rangers also play today. Rangers coming in this game 13-4. Sabres coming in this game 6-19-4. This game comes out. The over-under is 5.5 for this game. Today, this game comes on today, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on MSG Buffalo, and you can also find this on MSG. So the MSG Network's there, and I'll give Rangers the win. Sabres are on a 13-game losing streak. Rangers just won. I'll give the Rangers the win there. Should be a win. As for the Yankees, so the Yankees on Friday lost, and they lost again on Saturday, and then they won and got a good win on yesterday. So today we got the Twins, Braves. I'll give Twins the win. Cardinals, Marlins, give Cardinals the win. Mets, Astros, I guess Astros the win. Pirates, Orioles, give Pirates the win. Red Sox, Rays, give Red Sox the win. Indians, Brewers, give Indians the win. A's, Diamondbacks, give A's the win. White Sox, Giants, give White Sox the win. Royals, Padres, give Royals the win. Cubs, Angels, give Cubs the win. Rangers, Rockies, give Rockies the win. And Blue Jays, Tigers, give Blue Jays the win. And Dodgers, Mariners, give Dodgers the win. Yankees also play today. Yankees coming in this game 13-6-1. Phillies coming in this game 9-10-1. This game comes on today 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time on Yes. So Aaron Nola takes the mound for the Phillies, and Jameson Taillon takes the mound for the Yankees. I guess I'll forget the Yankees to win. Taillon's been pitching really well, and it's been really good. All the guys, Herman, Taillon, so far our pitching looks really good. So, by the way, tomorrow I have my fantasy baseball draft. So that should be good. I'm excited for that. Never played fantasy baseball before. I've kind of got some notes and pretty prepared for it. So we'll see how it all plays out. But as for fantasy basketball, I lost 1,528 to 1,963 to 1,528. So I didn't get the win there. I moved to 6-6 on the season. But today I got going Trae Young, Victor Oladipo, Pascal Siakam, Jonas Valanciunas, Fred VanVleet, Miles Turner, Kyle Lowry, and Kemba Walker. The injury update here: Trae Young's day-to-day. Young is listed as probable for Monday's game against the Clippers due to a bruised right quad. KO Quinard of Hawks.com reports. Victor Oladipo is also day-to-day. Oladipo will be held out of Monday's game against Toronto for maintenance purposes. Alkan Bajani of The Athletic reports. Kemba Walker is also day-to-day. Walker will play Sunday versus the Magic, but be out for Monday's game in Memphis. Keith Smith of Yahoo Sports reports. So that's that. Davis is still out. And Kyrie, we just got this news a little bit ago. Irving will not accompany the Nets on their upcoming 3-game road trip due to a personal matter. Shams Charania of The Athletic reports. So he's out again there. And as for fantasy hockey, I'm winning I won 145 to 94, so going really good there. I've won 6 of my last 7 games, so that's really good. And I'm 7-3 on the season. I'm the number 1 seed right now, so going really well there. But today I got going Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin, Anzez Kopitar, Johnny Graduate, Braden Shen, Brock Beausier, Nicole Ehlers, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, David Prawn, Jeff Petrie, Shea Theodore, Shea Weber, Jacob Schystrom, Justin Falk, and Adam Larson. And my goalies are Semyon Varlamov and Kaapo Kakkonen. So we'll see how all that plays out. And, Panarin's been a big boost to my team since he's came back. So since he's came back, my fantasy team, like I said, has really took off, which is really good. So fantasy hockey for first year doing it, going really well. So hopefully that stays that way. 7-3, I'm the 1 seed right now. So if it stays that way, we should be in a good position to see how the rest of the season plays out. So that should be good. But yeah, with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Another packed podcast full of sports. A lot of great sports news to report. So it was all good. So enjoy another big day of basketball. And obviously the Rangers are also on. So that should be good. With all that being said, that will do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I will see you all back here. I'll see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching.